The Fitbit Versa 2 is a fascinating fitness tracker. It is Fitbit's latest smartwatch that is a direct answer to the Apple Watch. I'm really excited to review it, so let's get right into it. The first and most prominent thing I want to mention about the Versa 2 is how comfortable it is to wear. I really enjoy wearing this watch despite how bulky it may have looked. Don't let the squared bulkiness kind of mislead you. I think this is actually a very comfortable watch. I absolutely love the feel of this watch on my hand, and I find it almost comparable to wearing a smaller fitness tracker such as the Garmin Vivosmart 4 or the Fitbit Charge 3. Most importantly, the Versa 2 only weighs 40 grams, which is the same weight as the comparable Vivoactive 4S. 40 grams on your wrist feels actually really light, and it does not distract you at all from sleeping or wearing this to the gym. I find that the silicone bands are actually really smooth on my wrist and don't bother me at all. And the wrist strap buckle doesn't bother me when I'm typing, so that's a really nice positive because sometimes they can be really big and be very bothersome when you have it lying down flat on a table.
The only con I have to say about the straps is that it's very difficult to put them back on.
So you may be able to see on the Versa 2 that it has a wedge design. There's a smaller surface area at the bottom of the watch touching your skin. This allows you to kind of bend your wrist up and move it around and have it not be so annoying. So this is actually a really cool design. So it may look kind of bulky on the exterior, but actually how it feels on your wrist is very comfortable and a smooth experience. Now, one thing I immediately noticed when I put on the watch, it definitely looked like an Apple Watch. And I think Fitbit had no shame in copying Apple's design. It kind of looks very similar to Apple's kind of boxy, curved edge type of design. Sometimes I observe people in public wearing the Versa 2, and I always think that they're wearing an Apple Watch, so it's kind of funny how they copy their design. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is a really big deal, and I'm going to dedicate a whole section on this because this feature to me is one of the game changers for the Versa 2, and I'm hoping that other fitness trackers and smartwatches follow with this type of design. And I'm talking about Alexa, the smart assistant, and thank goodness that we don't have Bixby because Samsung's Bixby is absolutely horrible. I've tested it on the Active and Galaxy watches. Its voice recognition is terrible. Alexa's voice dictation is actually very accurate and doesn't really mess up many times. Now, I think having Alexa on your wrist or some kind of really good smart assistant is a game changer for your day-to-day use. You can actually be walking on a busy street and then quickly set a reminder or maybe set an alarm or set a timer. One of the major annoyances using a small screen such as that on a fitness tracker or a smartwatch is that trying to configure something like a setting or setting an alarm can be very cumbersome if you have to manually input it with your hands. I find manual input with your finger gestures or tapping to be very cumbersome on such a small watch, obviously because it's so small. Using your voice, you can get tasks done really quickly and very efficiently. I think voice input is an essential feature on any fitness tracker or any smartwatch going forward into the future. I'm even demanding that these voice assistants actually be embedded in smaller form factors such as the Fitbit Charge 3 or the Vivosmart 4. Dim the bedroom lights to 10%. One of the things I despised when I was using my Garmin smartwatch or fitness tracker was that if I wanted to do a voice reply, I couldn't. There was no voice input, and I think Garmin is really behind on this. So I'm really hoping that Garmin and all other smaller form factor smart fitness trackers do implement some sort of voice assistant because I think it's an essential feature going forward.
One of my favorite features with Alexa are reminders. Reminders actually buzz your wrist continually, so you're not going to miss them. Oh, what's really cool is that Alexa has a dashboard for your timers, reminders, and alarms.
Now, in the past, I've used Samsung's Bixby, and I found that voice dictation into the watch was actually very inaccurate. I would talk to it, say something, and it would completely miss what I was saying. I'm happy to report that with the Alexa voice assistant on the Versa 2, voice dictation is almost 100% accurate. And I have to commend them because I'm very impressed that they're able to fit this voice assistant and this microphone in such a small form factor. Voice dictation on this Fitbit Versa 2 is quite amazing. Now, one of the major issues using a voice assistant is that sometimes it's very laggy or slow. I've observed this on the WearOS watches that only had 4 gigs of RAM. Now, with the Alexa, I've heard some high-profile YouTubers reviewing this Versa 2, and they were saying that the Alexa replies and getting into Alexa was slow. But in my experience, it was quite different. Yes, it's not super fast and it's not super instant and its replies are not as fast, but I found the overall experience of using Alexa on the Versa 2 more than adequate and fast enough for my needs. It's definitely faster than my experience of using the Google Voice Assistant on WearOS. When do the Raptors play next? So I'm extremely happy with the performance and the snappiness of the actual watch when it comes to using Alexa. Now there's one caveat to this that I noticed that when I'm trying to speak into the microphone, given that there's only one microphone on the watch and it's onto the right side of the watch, you kind of have to put it very close to your mouth so that it can properly hear all the words that you're saying. If you kind of speak to it more than maybe 40 centimeters away from your mouth, it's going to have a hard time detecting the voice. And I think that has to do with how it's trying to isolate background noise. So I do recommend that every time you use the voice assistant, just long press the button, which is a nice shortcut, and then speak to it relatively close. I know it looks kind of silly, but I do this to my phone every time I talk to my phone to the voice assistant. I just take my phone and directly talk into it. This way, it doesn't mess up anything, and it's just very reliable. Turn on all the lights. Now, unlike WearOS, I had no syncing issues when I was using smart assistant features or just using the device in general. I found that WearOS would sometimes just not work at all. I would summon the assistant and it would not take the Bluetooth data and transmit it to the phone and then back. So there was always some kind of syncing issue with WearOS, whereas with Versa 2, it has been very reliable throughout my entire results. Now, one interesting thing to note was that Pebble was acquired by Fitbit quite some time ago. And Pebble was one of the first few smartwatches on the market to have voice replies. It's kind of cool to see some of Pebble's DNA propagate into Versa 2, such as customized watch faces and custom apps, and of course, voice replies. I hope in the future, perhaps the Versa 3, they include a speaker, because right now when you talk to Alexa, it only responds back with text. It doesn't have an actual speaker on the device, so you can't make phone calls, you can't send text messages, and you obviously can't hear replies from the voice assistant, which to me isn't a bad thing. It's not the end of the world. I'm just very glad that there is some sort of voice input on this device. Another caveat to using the Alexa assistant is that you're kind of stuck to Amazon's ecosystem. For example, if you want to set a reminder, it's not going to show up on your Google reminders, it's going to show up on Amazon services, which isn't that bad, and it's not as bad as obviously Bixby. Now, perhaps in the future, given that Google acquired Fitbit, they might replace Alexa with obviously Google Assistant. That would be amazing. That would be a huge game changer, and it would even be better than having Alexa, even though Alexa is pretty good for what it is. Set a timer for 10 minutes. The next thing I want to talk about is the display or the screen. And I have to say the screen is absolutely gorgeous. It's beautiful to look at. Its pixel density is very high. So overall, I'm just very pleased just using this watch, swiping through the screens. The screen looks absolutely gorgeous. And one thing you'll note is that there are bezels and they're pretty big. But however, given that the operating system is using a dark theme overall, and given that the watch has a dark theme all around in terms of its actual look, the bezels kind of just blend into the operating system and you're not distracted by it. So overall, the screen looks really big and the pixel density is quite magnificent. In fact, the pixel density is so good, you can actually put barcodes. You can put your airline tickets from United Airlines, or you can put your Starbucks gift code on that, on top of having Fitbit Pay. So you actually don't have to bring your wallet when you go to the gym. You can put your membership barcode on it and you can just scan to enter, for example. That's one of the cool things about having a color display that has such a high resolution. You can put all these type of barcodes onto your device and not have to carry an extra wallet. So you might be asking, how is the interface? How is the software? How does it feel to actually use and browse through, the apps and the menus? Well, I have to say, it is pretty snappy. The performance of this device is actually quite good. However, the animations are a little bit choppy, but nowhere near as bad as what you may think. So I think overall they did a really good job on trying to balance between performance and battery life. I find that opening apps is actually relatively quick and snappy, and obviously a lot faster than WearOS. So good job to Fitbit on that. Now, there's one thing that is predominant through using the operating system and navigating through the menus is there's no swipe back feature. And what I mean by that is, let's say you open up an app and then you want to just go back to the main screen. You have to physically press the left mounted button. And I find that really annoying because it's kind of very hard to switch to kind of press it all the time. As I'm swiping, I would prefer to have a swipe right feature to kind of exit an app or exit a menu. I don't know why they didn't implement this simple gesture. I really wish they would leverage more gestures throughout the operating system. Another thing is that they're not using any gestures on swipe right on the home screen. I feel like they could use some more information, such as maybe calendar widgets or something like that, instead of just doing nothing. Now, in comparison to Garmin, which has an amazing interface, by swiping up and down, you can toggle through all the widgets. And their widgets are fitness centric. They show you stats and let's say your heart rate and stuff like that. And Fitbit does the same thing too. If you swipe up, you'll start showing all your fitness stats and metrics for the day, such as sleep time. Now, there's one thing that I don't like about Fitbit's implementation is that they don't put any smart features. For example, let's say you want to see your calendar event, your next agenda. It would be sweet if I could just swipe up and then see that information right away. Instead, I have to swipe to the left and then I have to open up the app. Thankfully, they allow you to arrange the apps kind of in the order, kind of like what you do on an iPhone. You just long press and then you can move your application to the, let's say, to the first page. And for example, let's say you want to have quick access to your weather, you can just swipe to the left and then tap that weather app. But I just don't like the action of having to open up a separate app. I kind of wish it was just part of the operating system as you navigate through the widgets, kind of like notifications. As you swipe up, you kind of see weather, you kind of see your calendar events, and obviously your fitness metrics. Now, there's one thing that I think they did really well, and it's the notifications. And if you swipe down one more time, you actually get access to some quick toggles. You can go into the settings and then you can enable do not disturb, wake up gesture, sleep mode, screen brightness, and all other types of settings. This is really nice if you want to quickly toggle do not disturb, because sometimes you're getting too much notifications, you want to stay focused. It's just nice being able to go really smoothly in the operating system and quickly disable, for example, I don't want to be disturbed or I'm in sleep mode. What I really like about this is that you can access your Fitbit Pay really fast by just swiping down, and then you have 3 buttons at the top. You have some quick access. For example, if I swipe down, you can control your music, see Fitbit Pay, and you can get access into your quick settings.
If you opt in to use Fitbit Pay, you'll need to enter your password every 24 hours, which is a little inconvenience, but I find accessing my Fitbit Pay really simple thanks to the swipe down gesture on the notification panel.
The next big topic is smart notifications, and this is an integral feature for any fitness tracker or any smartwatch you buy on today. One of the best benefits of having notifications on your wrist is that you can avoid using your phone. You can conserve the battery of your phone by not having to turn on the huge display and just have a quick glance of all your notifications on your watch. Now, yes, notifications can be very annoying, so I really appreciate that they have a quick access to do not disturb, or you can select which apps give you notifications. Now, I've covered this a lot in a lot of detail on the Fitbit Charge 3 throughout my full in-depth review. I still think to this day in 2020 that Fitbit has one of the best notification systems. The way they render notifications, especially on Android, giving users the access to inline notification action. So for example, let's say you're using a public transit app and you're monitoring a specific bus, and let's say you want to set a timer. You can set a timer for, let's say, 1 minute, given that there's an inline action. Obviously, another really major benefit of having the microphone is that you can do voice replies. So let's say you get a text message, you want to quickly reply. Your voice replies are going to be very contextual because you can quickly, and I mean really quickly because the performance of this application, the entire OS is really fast. You can just do a quick reply. One very small, minute complaint about notification is that I would like to have a weaker vibration setting. There's just normal and strong, and I find that the normal is a bit too strong for my taste. The next big feature, part of the Versa 2 that's usually on premium smartwatches, is music and music control. Now, unfortunately for me, I'm not a big music fan. I don't like having music on my wrist because I find it more annoying to have to load music, then pair my Bluetooth headphones to it, and then, it's just overall not a fun experience. I'd rather just take my phone to the gym and just pair it there, because navigating through music can be very complex and it's very hard. It obviously eats into your battery, and I find having music on your wrist kind of pointless. However, if you're a runner that doesn't want to carry a large phone in your pocket while you're running, I can see the major benefit in having the music on your Fitbit device. Now, unfortunately, I think the music implementation is still poor. There are a couple things that are pretty bad with it. One is that you can't use Spotify, the premium subscription, and load music onto it. The Spotify app is only for controlling your Spotify app on your smartphone. So I found that pretty pointless and kind of annoying that I can't really load music from Spotify. The next thing is that I have to manually sync music from my desktop onto my Fitbit watch. And I mean, come on, there's a comment that someone said on another video that, is it 2002? I mean, seriously, syncing music is kind of old school. I really wish that it was just all part of a native experience. I just open up the Fitbit app and I can sync my music through whatever subscription service I have. Now, you can use Deezer, which is another subscription music that can load music onto the watch. But unfortunately, that to me isn't a very popular streaming platform, at least in Canada, and I don't have access to Deezer. I don't want to pay for another subscription. So I think it's really unfortunate that there's no maybe Amazon Music or Spotify Music that can allow you to load music and podcasts onto your smartwatch. And also, funny enough, when I went to the Fitbit website during the time of filming of this video, I could not download their desktop application to load music like MP3s onto this smartwatch, which was really disappointing. So I can't even get the feature to work, and I'm really disappointed in that. Another major con with the music controls of this device is that I'm not able to control the music of my smartphone. So for example, let's say I open up Google Music or a YouTube video. I want to be able to go into my watch and quickly pause or play, change the volume. It's kind of a remote control to your smartwatch. This feature is not on this device. Unlike the Garmin, which does have this feature, I'm surprised that this doesn't have it. So very odd that this feature doesn't exist on this Versa 2 smartwatch. Another weak aspect of the Versa 2 is the watch face. Now, don't get me wrong, if you are a fitness nerd or you love fitness metrics, you're going to get all that information on as complications on your smartwatch watch face. However, for me, I like to see things like the weather, the next calendar event, maybe next notification. And I find that the customization and the third-party watch face support isn't very mature or is not very good. One of the major complaints for me is that a lot of third-party watch faces require you to pay for it. And I don't mind paying for it. I know it's hard work to develop these applications, but I find the experience of having to pay for it kind of poor because you have to go, it's kind of an out-of-app experience. So it's not like a very smooth experience. You go onto Google Play Store and you can just download an app and pay for it. It's kind of annoying to have to constantly pay for custom third-party watch faces or applications. To this day, I think that WearOS, Garmin, and even Pebble had a way better watch face ecosystem, especially when it comes to displaying smart stats such as next calendar event, notifications, or the weather. Now, I'll say one major positive to watch faces on the actual Versa 2 is the always on display. And that is an amazing essential feature that I really need. I love just being able to just quickly glance at my watch, not have to worry about the gesture feature. The gesture moisten feature works very well. And it even has a really nice smooth animation. It kind of puts the extra information onto the display, really smoothly kind of transitions in. But I find that the always on display feature is absolutely amazing, and I'm so happy that they have it, and it works very well and doesn't really drain the battery life as far as I'm concerned. So you might be saying, hey, you've been talking a lot about the smart features. What about fitness tracking? Isn't that what Fitbit is all about? And yes, I do think that Fitbit is more fitness tracking centric. I do think that their heart rate tracking, the sleep tracking, and the fitness tracking are world-class, one of the best that you can get out there. I think that their heart rate algorithms, their sleep tracking algorithms are very well developed and they're very accurate. And yeah, so I have no complaints about the fitness tracking. There's one major complaint that I heard online, but I haven't verified it, is that the swim detection on this is not very good. Now, I don't have access to a pool right now, so if you are a major swimmer, I definitely recommend researching into this and see if this will fit your needs. Now, unfortunately, Fitbit has one major hole in its fitness tracking, and I think that's rep counting or weightlifting. They have a very simple weightlifting application. All you do is kind of just start it, and all it does is track the time that you were doing your weightlifting and then track the calories that were burnt. It does have this notion of laps that you can press every time you do a set, but it doesn't do half what Garmin does or WearOS does in terms of tracking the in-between time between your sets. I like to track what my rest time is and how long it takes for me to do a set. It doesn't have any weight detection feature, so it doesn't know what kind of motion you're doing. So none of that actually works. It's just a very simple start and stop weightlifting type of exercise. Personally, for me, I can't use this watch because it doesn't have a rep counter. I'm forced to use a Garmin watch or a WearOS watch. And this is really unfortunate because I feel like with all their fancy sensors, accelerometers, and obviously bright engineers, they have some really smart people working at Fitbit, especially now it's acquired by Google. Why can't they do this? So please, I hope in future iterations, given that Fitbit has been acquired by Google, I hope that would bring some of this technology into the Versa series. Now, there is a third-party custom app that tries to do what I'm trying to talk about, which in terms of the rep counting, but I find that app was really hard to use. It was an out-of-app experience. I had to go on a different website, type in some code. It was just very annoying. I wish Fitbit would just do a native experience. And even that app wasn't working very accurately. You weren't able to start and stop a set. It was just all automated. It would just start your rest time automatically based on some timer. So that app did not help very well, and I'm very sad about this. Now, in terms of the actual apps, the quality apps are, I think, better than Garmin, but not as good as WearOS. I find that apps open up really fast and they're very performant. And I'm hoping that these apps will continue to grow over the future. So the next thing I want to talk about is sleep tracking and their SpO2 sensor or their blood oxygen reading sensor. And I find that Fitbit is one of the world's best in terms of detecting when you properly start your sleep and when you end your sleep. I find that Garmin devices sometimes can really mess up and they're not very accurate. In fact, Garmin devices make you kind of go into the application and set your start and end time when you fall asleep typically. I fall asleep at different hours of the night, and I find that Fitbit is very accurate in detecting your start and stop, especially when it comes to your deep sleep, REM sleep, time you're awake, and your light sleep. It's all very accurate. Unfortunately, the SpO2 sensor, like in my previous video, I definitely recommend checking that out where I go into detail about the SpO2 and its results. I found that the SpO2 sensor doesn't really give any good information.
Another con is that you can't seek through the graph to actually see what the values are. So let's jump into a concrete example and observe how Fitbit's SpO2 sensor actually works. So this is Fitbit's estimated oxygen variation. And as you can see right at the beginning, there's a high spike. It actually surpasses that line, and that shows that there was a high variation in your blood oxygen saturation, which could mean some sort of sleep apnea event. You stop breathing, for example, could be a possible outcome of that. Now, the funny thing is that this result is actually from someone who has not been diagnosed with sleep apnea. In fact, that person has a proper sleep, has no complaints about sleep apnea or anything like that. So that spike might just be an anomaly, and it will look at my results and we'll compare that and see what it looks like. So here are my results. As you can see, I don't go above the high threshold, so that means I don't have a high oxygen variation. This is very misleading based on what I've captured on other devices such as the Better Sleep Tuner and the Loki Ring Sleep Monitor. I believe those devices are properly representing my sleep apnea. Just have a look at my stopped breathing events as reported by Better Sleep Tuner. You can tell that I definitely have some sort of sleep apnea, unlike Fitbit's reports. And looking at Loki's Ring Sleep Monitor, you can see the yellow red lines. That's where I'm having sleep apnea events where my blood oxygen saturation has gone down. So this is next day's results from the Fitbit Charge 3 in terms of the relative SpO2. And as you can tell, there hasn't been any much change. And it's really hard to decipher what is actually happening here. Do I have sleep apnea events? Is there something wrong with my blood oxygen variation? As you can tell by the graph, there's obviously some variation in my blood oxygen. However, I'm never going over the high threshold, which is very confusing.
So I've been testing this against the Sleep Tuner and other more sophisticated blood oxygen saturation sensors, and I find that the Fitbit relative SpO2 sensor, it doesn't really give any useful information, as I mentioned before. So I found this feature pretty much kind of useless, and it's really sad that they don't give anything valuable out of it. One really cool feature that Fitbit offers is smart alarms. And what you can do is you can set a time that you want to wake up. For example, let's say you want to wake up at 9:30, and it'll detect you 30 minutes prior to 9:30, whether you're in a light sleep mode. And what it will do is it'll actually wake you up, let's say at 9 a.m., which is 30 minutes within the 30-minute boundary, because you're in a light sleep. It detects that you're in a light sleep, and it actually will vibrate and on your wrist, give you that haptic feedback, and you'll wake up in a less groggy state. This smart alarm feature might be useful for people who want to wake up less groggy and don't mind waking up a little bit earlier than their set alarm time. For me, I like to sleep in, so I'll surpass my sleep time by maybe another 30 minutes. So you might be wondering, how is Versa 2's battery life? And I have to say, even with the always on display on all the time and the larger screen, I have to say that I am getting the 4-day battery life. And that to me is amazing because I can easily last 4 days and just charge it in between. 4 days compared to WearOS is actually really long. So I had a lot to say about the Versa 2. In general, I want to summarize that the Versa 2 is an amazing, comfortable watch to wear day in, day out throughout your workout and sleep. I found that the screen is gorgeous to look at. The pixel density is amazing. I find that the Alexa integration is amazing. Being able to control my smart home lights, set reminders, and do voice replies is actually a very useful feature, and it performs very relatively quick. My only cons for this smartwatch is the lack of a rep counter. To me, this is a very niche feature, I understand, but I don't understand why WearOS and Garmin have this natively built in. So this is a niche feature. It may not affect you, so don't let this deter you from actually getting this watch. Another disappointing feature with this smartwatch is the relative SpO2 sensor. I find that the data that is presented is not very helpful and doesn't allow me to actually discern any information from it. Overall, I really like this device, the Versa 2. I think it's an amazing complement from Fitbit, being able to put a microphone in the Alexa assistant and have a pretty long battery life and a very, very beautiful screen. I'm really excited about the future of Fitbit. I really hope that they continue this pace of innovation, bringing these game-changing features such as the Alexa assistant in their next series. Anyways, that's it for this video review of the Versa 2. Let me know what you guys think about this smartwatch. I know it's been out for a while, so I'd love to hear what people think about it. If you like this video, please do give a like. It really helps out this channel. And definitely consider subscribing if you want to hear more wearable related content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.